Hello Magic players, back again, Mills from MTG here with some Budget Modern. And today we're going to be talking about a deck that is kind of weird because we're taking a card that was played a lot in Standard and then never really again. And we're basically going to be playing Hot Potato with it. So Hot Potato usually you're trying to toss to someone else. So this is a tiny little version of it where it's basically you're just playing Hot Potato with yourself. So the card that in question here, the card we're going to be playing with is Demonic Pact. Demonic Pact reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, choose one that hasn't been chosen yet. There's Demonic Pact deals 4 damage to target creature or player and you gain 4 life. Target opponent discards 2 cards, draw 2 cards, and you lose the game. Now, obviously, that fourth option is not ideal. It's not something we want. So, what we're going to be doing is we're either going to be getting value those first 3 turns. Hopefully, we draw it into something that allows us to mess around with stuff and pull some shenanigans that we really probably shouldn't be able to. So, we're going to start off by talking about Flicker Wisp. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent, return it to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. This is going to be a way for us to get 3 triggers off of Demonic Pact, play Flicker Wisp, and flicker our Demonic Pact. It'll re-enter, and then we'll get more value out of it, and then hopefully we can get some extra value with some other cards. The next card we have is Felidar Guardian, which says when it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target permanent, and then you return it immediately, not just at the end of your turn with Flicker Wisp. So that can get some extra value if we want it immediate, but there is definitely there is still that enter the battlefield, flicker a permanent you control. And then the third creature we have here, I wanted to talk about last, even though it's first on the list, is because you need another one of your creatures out to do this. It says, when it enters the battlefield, choose one. Scry 2, gain 3 life, or exile another creature you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So, if you do this, then you can flicker your own Flicker Wisp, or flicker your own Felidar Guardian, and flicker your Demonic Pact, or you can just scry 2, gain 3 life early on, and so it's a little bit of versatility while also giving us the ability to keep our flickering game going. Then, the next card that synergizes extremely well with this deck is Gideon of the Trials, which that 0 ability, that third ability, it says, you get an emblem with, as long as you control a Gideon Planeswalker, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make it so it doesn't matter if our Demonic Pact expires. Obviously we want to keep refreshing it so we can keep getting that value. Demonic Pact dealing 4, gaining 4 is a huge move forward if we're trying to win the game. Demonic Pact can just be huge for that. But if it does end up expiring and go to you lose the game, Gideon of the Trials is there to keep us in the game. But that's a big thing, and then we can +1 Gideon after we 0 him to start preventing damage, just so that we, let's say our opponent has 1 big threat on the board, we can just lock that out. And then if we end up, we have some kill spells, we have some exiling, if we end up locking our opponent out completely, which it's not going to be very common in this deck, but it is a possibility, we can just turn Gideon into a creature and swing. Next up is our spell base. We have Duress as a budget version of Thoughtseize. It's in here because our big concern is probably going to be not even creatures. I feel like we'll do just fine against creatures. I feel like our big concern is going to be getting blown out by something that is like a Karn or some storm piece. It's just duress, or some combo piece actually. So duress is in there, so it is a valid replacement. It still is relevant in the deck. I also tossed in some inquisitions though, because the inquisitions do allow us to make our opponent discard creatures, where duress doesn't let us make them discard creatures. It's just I really like duress in here as a budget option, and inquisition will fill the gaps that duress can't. Next up is a single copy of Fatal Push, and that's because we don't really need it that often. Fatal Push is going to be in here, and it's going to be a just a little bit of a like filling in the gap every now and then, but it's in here for removal. Next up is Path to Exile, which is going to be our bigger piece of removal, which is exile target creature. They search their library for land, but the big part is it exiles, so any Lurrus deck no longer matters. Next up is a multiple choice card. So you choose two. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, exile all cards from each opponent's graveyard, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature with flying, or you gain 4 life. Or you can entwine 3 to choose all if you pay that extra cost. So if you pay 6 for this, you get all of those. Otherwise, you can just choose 2 of them. And I think this is a really good card to have. It's really flexible, and you see it a lot if you're looking at like Esper lists. And if I'm going to be completely honest, you could even turn this list into an Esper list. You would just want to add Teferi Time Ravelers and change the lands, and that way your Teferi Time Raveler can even bounce your Demonic Pact. Anyway, this is here for just a bit of utility, just like flexibility and being able to choose what you want to be able to do. Next up is probably the piece of removal that we're going to be using for smaller creatures more often than Fatal Push. Mostly because we can flicker it. We can flicker it with Flicker Wisp, we can flicker it with Felidar Guardian. This says when it enters the battlefield, deal 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And then whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control with one or more creatures, Oath of Kaya deals 2 damage to that player and you gain 2 life. So, if your opponents are trying to kill your Gideon so that you can actually lose the game, then Oath of Kaya is going to hop and be like, well, you're going to lose life, I'm going to gain life, so like, and if you even get to my Planeswalker, because we have a bunch of blockers, we have a bunch of removal, like you're still going to, it kind of just discourages your opponent from attacking you. Next up is Oblivion Ring. Oblivion Ring comes into play and you exile something from the game. And it doesn't say your opponent, so if you have absolutely nothing else, you could technically Demonic Pact. You could Oblivion Ring your own Demonic Pact, which does give us a little bit of extra use out of this card, but also it comes in great if your opponent has a huge threat that you just can't deal with. And then when it leaves play, the removed card re-enters. So honestly, what you could even do is you could Oblivion Ring to exile your own Demonic Pact, and then later use Flicker Whisper Felidar Guardian on your Oblivion Ring, flicker it, Demonic Pact re-enters, and then you have Oblivion Ring re-enter, getting a bigger threat. Anyway, we do also have that Demonic Pact, I already went over that, and that is all of the main deck except for the lands. Now the lands, we have Barren Moor and Secluded Steppe as cycling lands just to add a little bit more utility. We have Caves of Koilos and Concealed Courtyard as ways for us to hit both of our colors. I really like Caves of Koilos because it's not pay 1 life, add this, because if we have Gideon of the Trials, we could technically go to 0 life, negative life with Caves of Koilos, and so obviously I don't want to go that low in case our Gideon dies, but on the case that we're that low, it doesn't stop our lands from being effective, so it doesn't stop us. Next up is Concealed Courtyard as a fast land, and then the rest are just basic lands. Anyway, that's it for the main deck. Off to the sideboard, we do have 4 Tormod's Crit for Graveyard Hate, 3 Bloodchief's Thirst in case we need more removal. There are some games where the duress, like if we go against burn, duresses won't really be useful. We can make them discard burn spells, but like you could bring in these instead if you'd like. I could also, but this is just when you just gotta feel it out when you need some extra removal. This can also hit Planeswalkers. Damping Sphere for Tron and Storm matchups. Core Firewalker for any matchup where you're really going to be going against a lot of red spells, for example, Burn, Izzet, Prowess, Storm even. Like Storm, they're probably going to win anyway, but any little bit of extra life that you make them have to deal to you does make them have to work harder. Sorcerer's Spyglass here as a real quick, I do like Core Firewalker because Grape Shot becomes a lot harder to use because you're gaining life for every single red spell they're casting, and they only get 1 storm per spell they cast. So unless they get 2 Grape Shots or more, they're gonna have a hard time. Next up is Sorcerer's Spyglass as a way to deal with our opponents using Planeswalkers or other activated abilities like Devoted Druid. So this is going to be our way to deal with that. It also, if you're going against Tron, does dodge Ugin, which is really, really nice. Next up is Kaya Orzhov Usurper, and Kaya Orzhov Usurper is the kind of card you're going to bring in if you're going to be in a grindier matchup. And so this allows us to just try to outvalue our opponent, but you can also bring it in a matchup like Burn. It's very boltable. I'm going to be honest, it's very boltable, but in any matchup where our opponent is playing 1-drops, we can even use this on Ether Vials. We can -1 to exile Ether Vials, which Ether Vial in our deck with Flicker Wisps, I really like the Flicker Wisp Ether Vial synergy, but you can steal your opponent's Ether Vials, not steal. I would put Ether Vial in the deck, but it would be over $100 for the playset. But Kaya Orzhov Usurper is a way for us to just exile their stuff and get some extra. Well, it could be an extra win con. Anyway, this deck is Hot Potato, and it is $99.36 or $30 online. Anyway, this deck is really funny. Once you drop the Demonic Pact, like turn 3 Gideon, turn 4 Demonic Pact, they're like, oh, I see what's happening here. Or the moment you Demonic Pact, they're like, oh, where's their red? They're gonna try to give it to me, but no, you're just faking your opponent out the entire game, and it's really funny. But I really enjoyed building this deck. I enjoyed playtesting it. If you enjoyed the list, let me know below and hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, please let me know by subscribing. I'm getting really excited. I'm getting really close to that 100 subscribers, and so I am very excited. Go tell your friends. I'm super cringy, I know, but I'm very excited and I'm happy to be doing this. Anyway, I will see you next time.